It's Thursday, February 28th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. We have a special edition of Barnstable Today celebrating Black History Month with Barnstable Public Schools. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing the central role of blacks in U.S. history. The event grew out of Negro History Week, the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. We start off our show with Pam Silva, 8th grade social studies teacher at Barnstable High School. Ms. Silva incorporated a unique project into her curriculum that encouraged students to research lesser-known African Americans and build their database skills. We visited her classroom to learn more.
We certainly include people of color and different races and nationalities throughout our curriculum, but to devote targeted lessons towards it, I do think it is important, and I think it makes people feel more connected. I have a fair amount of diversity in my classes. I really do, and I hope, and I do think that it helps the students feel more comfortable with each other. I've seen people sort of sit up a little straighter when they see good things or hear about achievements and have an opportunity to look at this and just kind of see that it's not just an isolated person here or there who has done something good and positive. In terms of the movie that I like to show during the month of February, we watch it about 20 minutes every other day. But it is based on a true story of Vivian Thomas, who in Depression-era Nashville, Tennessee, 1930, lost his job, lost all his savings, of course, when the Depression hit. And he wanted to be a doctor, though. He always wanted to be a doctor. And he ends up getting a position with Dr. Alfred Blaylock. He starts off as a janitor, helping with cleaning the dog cages, and he is seen reading his medical books. The doctor comes across him reading his medical books. Long story short, he becomes his lab assistant, and he goes with him all the way when he moves several years later during World War II to Baltimore, to Johns Hopkins Hospital, and together they are oblivious to some of the social norms and the prejudicial treatment of people of color, and they have a good relationship, but yet there's tension there too. It's not all rosy by any means, but together, they embark upon research for the blue baby syndrome. I am not a scientist, I can't think of what the medical term is, but the blue baby syndrome, which essentially is really the beginnings of open heart surgery. And by the end, you see all that, you see about Vietnam, you see about the civil rights movement, you get a glimpse of how things changed throughout the decades, and then in the end, he is awarded an honorary doctorate. And he never went to college. Well, my students have always, for the most part, really been very engaged with it. You know, as I say, we pause, we have discussion questions, and then at the end they have to reflect upon a quote. When the father says to the son, who is very disappointed that he didn't receive recognition and thanks for helping with the teacher strike that goes all the way to the Supreme Court for equal pay, and the father says something to the effect that, well, don't wait for that bus to come in, that bus ain't never gonna come, or something like that. In other words, you need to do things because it's the right thing to do. And lots of kids choose to, the quote is better than that, but the kids choose often to write about that particular quote because it just brings home the point that if we're gonna get progress, if we're gonna do things, even though everybody wants to get appreciation and you'd like to hear some thanks, it goes beyond that if you wanna make real change. And see what is the meaning of that quote and how does it relate to you. So I've found them to really enjoy this particular movie. You know, there are different ones you can show, but this one, it's just so uplifting. And I think that it just brings home that, wow, how did he go from having to step aside on a sidewalk when white people walked by to standing up there and having his portrait hung next to all these physicians in Johns Hopkins and receiving an honorary doctorate. So I just think it's an uplifting, good story, and they always seem to like it a lot. I like to do a project where I introduce the students, number one, to learning how to use databases. Our library, which is going to be awesome, isn't quite fully operational yet. So the first week of February, I had the Chromebooks in here in my classroom, and I had a rubric and the assignment for them, and they had to research. First of all, I showed them how to use databases, how to look them up, and how to find the ones that would be particularly useful for our purposes. And then they had to very quickly choose 3 people or an event, and give a little brief description about why was it significant. And then I looked at them all and was able to make sure that we had a diverse group of people and events. So then they had to fill out some information about basic information, who, what, when, where, why, how, and answer some more in-depth questions, but just 2. The final project is creating a magazine cover. So they usually seem to enjoy that. Some kids choose to use an app and make it look fairly professional, like this one. Others, which is great, as long as they met the criteria for what they had to have on it. And then others, very artistic, created on their own. Or then we have some that are sort of a combination of the 2, where they sort of cut and paste a little bit, But the point is, what's going to be fun about this is at the end of the month, after we have completed all our daily Black History facts and the magazine cover and the movie, I create a scavenger hunt kind of a quiz. And so they can work with a partner and they get to go around the room. So the kids will have their, as I say, their binders with them from the daily facts, and they will have questions that will have them go around and really pay attention and learn about the people that have been researched. It's usually pretty fun. And I have to acknowledge, especially the topic of slavery, and that's why I do this, because I don't want it to, Black History Month isn't just about talking about slavery. There's so much more. And so again, when they choose their people who they're going to do, I certainly encourage them to do Thurgood Marshall, and certainly Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, of course. But I also want them to go for I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but one of the women who was so involved in NASA. I want to, the astronauts, yes, entertainers and sports players too, but lots of wonderful professions and accomplishments. So again, to me, it's an opportunity to make sure that message is out there. And it may not be specifically in my 8th grade curriculum, so I have a little leeway here. But I feel like this is part of civics, and it leads very nicely into a discussion of civics. Yeah. And another thing is, if you don't mind, the upperclassmen too, with the door project that Ms. Williams and Ms. McIsaac started, there was some interaction between the 8th graders and some of the upperclassmen that were assisting with the doors, and that was great too.
Barnstable High School history teacher Chrissy Williams found inspiration in a Facebook group for educators. The doorways of the Social Studies Department at BHS reflect diversity, creativity, and the achievements of African American entrepreneurs, entertainers, and agents of change. It's Black History Month here at Barnstable High School. Chrissy Williams, your social studies teacher, is that what they still call it?
Yes, yes.
So social studies has a lot of different content to it. There's some social, obviously. There's some history to it. Tell us a little bit about Black History Month. What is that?
Okay, so Black History Month actually was started by Carter G. Woodson, I believe sometime in the 1970s, and I believe it actually started out as a week. It was Negro History Week, and then it developed into a month that kind of like just caught on like wildfire. And you know, a lot of people are split. It's unfortunately we really do need a Black History Month, because I remember when I was growing up, you know, who I saw in textbooks, and it was very little of who was reflected as me as an African American as well as a woman. So this is a month, not only, I think a lot of people get hung up and think that our history just began with slavery, and that's so untrue. You know, that's obviously a key part of it, but the triumphs, you know, the sorrows, you know, what we were before we came to this country is very important for people to learn and know about. And every day I learn something new. Right. It's fantastic.
So there is so many different types of things that you can do to teach students and actually the community about African Americans. One of the projects that you're involved with that will really come to fruition next year is a banner to welcome people into the school and tell them about Black History Month. Tell me how that idea came about.
A few years ago, we did do some banners for Black History Month, but they were just specific quotes from African Americans that we thought were important. I think we got together, there were 10, and we narrowed it down to 3 or 4. I think it's important that we just have a banner for Black History Month that we can pull out of the closet every year and hang prominently in the building, in the main lobby or outside the building. That way the community knows what's going on. People coming through the door know what's going on. And the kids, the minute they hit the door, they feel recognized and they feel important. So that's where the idea came from for the permanent banners.
Right. And let's talk about the construction of those banners. So it's always amazes me how all these other departments end up working together. One department has an idea, and then I'm never going to say that word. You can say that word.
Interdisciplinary.
So how do you engage other departments to kind of take this and run with it?
Usually what I'll do is I'll throw out an email and I'll say, hey, this is what we're working with. This is where we're going. You know, if you think you might be interested, let us know. And so I have a handful of teachers that I know personally in other departments, as well as the social studies department. Our department is very close. And I just said, we want to do this project. We want to have a banner done by this time next year. Do you know any names of any lesser known figures that maybe the students can research and they can be a part of the banner? And so a lot of teachers said, we'll look into it and we'll get some names back to you. So from there, it's going to be a selection process. And then hopefully because I teach upperclassmen, I always have students who have taken Fine Arts 1, 2, or 3. So they'll definitely be spearheading the design of it. We have a great graphic design department also too. So I'm sure they'll be involved at some point. And then, we'll decide and then we'll do the final draft. So that's how it's going to end up, hopefully.
What does the community learn about Black History Month when they see a banner like that? What's your hope for the community?
I'm hoping that their interest will be piqued and they'll want to learn more. I feel that the school does an okay job with it. I'd like to see efforts be stepped up in the district as well as the school, so that there isn't even a question. Like, there are still people who don't know that February is Black History Month. Sad to say, here we are in 2019, but it's the truth. So that's the hope, that people come in and go, hey, what's going on? Ultimately, I'd love for us to have a list or a calendar of specific things that we are going to be doing that month as a school to invite the community in, so, speakers or maybe potluck dinners, things of that nature. So that's the ultimate goal.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about, walking down the hallway in your department is a cornucopia of doors that are decorated for Black History Month. How did that project come about?
It was just fly by the seat of your pants project, which usually is my life. And so I saw a picture on Facebook. I'm a member of an educators group, and the picture was very simple. It had a teacher in Brooklyn and just said, look what whoever her name was did for Black History Month. And it was just a gorgeous door. And so I was like, wow, that's really, really cool. So the next day, my friend who teaches across the hall from me says, hey, look what my friend sent me. And it was the same picture. And so she said, I think I'm going to do my door. And I said, I think I am too. And so we kind of knew that we were going to do them. And then I said, well, let's just see. And so I just threw the carrot out there, and then a lot of people responded. And so that's why you get so many different angles and so many different visions of what Black history means to them as well as their students, which I think is great. You know, I provided a few examples in the email, but by no means did they have to do that door exactly like the teacher did. And so they did some research on their own, and some of the kids said, well, this is what I want to do. And, you know, we said go for it because it's, you know, the school should represent them. So that's how that came about.
So let's talk a little bit about the history. One of the doors that we saw had entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
This just fascinated me that there were so many people that I didn't hear of, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I pride myself on knowing my history of an industry. Tell me how that door came about.
I teach in the same classroom with a teacher. Her name is Monique Maurice, and she actually is starting a new program here, just started this year, in marketing and entrepreneurship. So that's what she wanted to do on her door. So she really wanted to tie it in with her kids, which is why she created the brochures, you know, as well as the pictures, so that if people said, oh my goodness, I never knew that such and such a, you know, own this company or whatever, they could just take a brochure, you know, do a little research on their own, and then that's their piece of Black history for the month. So
that's great. And what about your door?
My door is a throwback to what I looked like when I was a little kid. My mom used to always put me in little Afro puffs, and my hair would be parted right here, and I'd look like Mickey Mouse. And so if you look at my door, I've got the little separation there with the, you know, the Afro puffs. So that was my door. I wanted to make it fun, and I wanted to make it about, you know, a time period in my life that was very happy. So,
what door has surprised you?
My goodness. I think the two that surprised me probably are, there's one where there's a young African-American girl, and she's got her eyes closed, and she's dreaming or thinking about all of the African-Americans that accomplished great things in her head, and you can actually see it, and it's just fantastic. And then another door, I have another door that I like is just a side profile of an African-American woman, and it's got all the kids' hands, you know, and they use the hands as her hair. And that's just really, really unique. And the student that worked on that door, she's my student personally, and she worked very hard on that door, and it's beautiful.
So what are the students actually learning with this? It seems like it's a fun project, and we always think, are fun projects learning projects?
Yes, I agree. I think that it's important to be fun in education. You know, those days are gone where you just kind of sat there and, like, you know, the teacher dictated and you took notes. They learn a lot of decision making. They learn how to work in a team. They learn about editing. They learn about problem solving. Oh my gosh, we had this idea in our head and it looks a hot mess and we got to go back and clean this up. You know, the one door, it was a group of 2 boys, and I swear they must have went through about 4 versions before they actually got, you know, the one that they were satisfied with. And so they're learning life skills, you know, and work skills, as well as, you know, learning about their heritage, or people who have never been exposed to, you know, African Americans and known that all these people accomplished all these great things. So they're learning a lot.
What are people's reactions when the doors first started going up? Well, what did you see? Was there a stop and wow, or were people walking by and turning around?
Well, the first 2 that went up were my friend's door and mine. And so people were like, wow, that's really cool. And then I think as other people started to put their doors up, then it was just like, whoa. And now, you know, we have teachers coming in, you know, from all parts of the building, walking up through the hallway. I had a diversity teacher, an English teacher. She came and brought her class down the hallway, and now she's doing her own door. So I think definitely the reaction has just been really, really fantastic. And the kids are very proud. You know, it's very fulfilling for them to hear, you did a great job. And they know they did, and they're like, oh my goodness, I worked really hard on it and it paid off, you know. So hopefully that skill will transfer into the classroom too.
And you had mentioned something in our pre-interview that struck me, is that there isn't a lot of self in some of your text and things for African American students. With these doors, what's the identity with these students? Are they really like looking at this going, this is me?
That is the hope. I know I've seen it with some of my students, particularly that are African American. It's okay to be in your skin, as we say. You know, we have a couple of sayings. You know, we got that black girl magic and that black boy joy. And so, you know, to walk down a hallway and see that, it's like, oh man, I'm cool. This is the cool hallway. You know, it's okay to be me, and I've got a lot of ideas, and maybe they'll work. So. They're very, very excited, and I'm glad. You know, they have been like, the minute they hit the door, you know, when the period begins, they're like, they just come take the stuff and they run, work on the door, you know, just like, I'm here, and then they're gone. And that's what you want to see as a teacher. You know, you want to see a kid excited to come to your class every day. So.
Right. And I guess I want to close with this question is, how can the community learn more about African American history, not the history that's always touted in a book somewhere, but the deep history of the race and how the integration and diversity has grown this country.
Right. I would say there are several ways. You know, a lot of African American history I taught myself. I make it a point to go to my family reunion every other year to learn my genealogy. It's very, you know, it's very important. It's very eye-opening. It keeps things fresh in my mind. There's so much research that you can do online. There are a number of websites. There's, you know, one that's like blackfacts.com. Some will send you a fact a day. On this day, such and such happened. And then there are webinars also, and there are lots of online classes that you can take too. And just go down to the library and say, you know, I think I'm going to take out, you know, the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. You know, it's a short read, it's fantastic, and there you go. Excellent.
Anything that I didn't ask that you want the community or your school community to know? I really just would like them to really get behind this, and I think that, you know, it can really grow into something phenomenal if we definitely have a commitment from the schools and the district. It could just really be a fantastic month for the students as well as us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our final stop on today's show is Kathy Duran's classroom at High West, a classroom of second graded orators who are ready to change the world.
Today you will witness second graders from Hyannis West Elementary who are wide awake and getting the job done. This diverse group of young orators is indeed Dr. King's dream realized, right here, right now.
I want all of you to learn to like your enemies as friends, so when I grow up there will be no more wars. I dream about people saying thank you to others, people speaking to each other with kindness and love, people taking care of each other. Peace begins with me.
I am a strong, smart, sensitive, and brave boy who dreams in a time when people won't hate anymore. I will be changing the world. I will be a minister like Dr. King.
That time is always right to do what is right. What are you doing for others? Equal rights for everybody.
I am a lucky child. I do not see prejudice at my school or in my home. I think I'm Dr. King's dream come true. Why do we judge each other? People, just because you speak different languages doesn't mean you can't still be friends. There are other ways to communicate.
O mundo precisa de remédio para crianças não ficar doentes. Todo o mundo precisa de remédio para não ficar doente. Saúde para todo o mundo.
What I try to do, and what has been really my passion on getting into teaching, is to have children have a voice, to empower children so that they can raise their voice. That's where this came from. I started doing the speeches over a decade ago. Little children have big ears and they hear everything that goes on the news and at home, and it's a way for them to process it, and it's a way for them to feel like they matter. And I'm part of this community. I'm a member of the community, and I want to see our children strong. And so that's my purpose behind it. Having the family in, having the school committee as our audience, and having the town of Barnstable as our audience makes our children realize that they are important.
I'm a kind, respectful, fearless, and loud and sensitive young scholar who believes that we should treat others the way we want to be treated. No one is free until we're all free. My dream is that no one will be prejudiced. Prejudice hurt people.
Dr. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I believe this too. Prejudice is caging and locking people out of America. If people were prejudiced against me and didn't let me into America, I would have no school to learn. If I stayed in Brazil, I wouldn't have a nice home or such a great education. I wish all people could get into the U.S.
I dream of a world where peace is the law. Do unto whom you spread peace. Anyone can be a peacemaker. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Dr. King said, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. I'm only 7 years old, and that's what I dream. I dream of a world where peace is the law.
And you know, I worked with Joe DeLuz, and Joe DeLuz was a great civil rights leader, activist, and now I have his granddaughter in my class. So this year's book is dedicated to Joe. It says, some people dream of great accomplishments while others stay awake and do them. And that's what I'm doing here with these children. I'm getting their books together. I'm making sure they go home. I'm getting them out into the public. I'm having their voices heard. They have an authentic audience. Some of these children's reading levels were at like the K1 level, and you just heard them read beautifully and fluently and loudly. When you make something that you know is important and authentic and it has meaning to you personally, they really go home and they really work it out.
I'm going to march, just like Martin, to change laws. If I have to, I'll walk right up to the president's door and knock. I will say, it's Ariana Corey, great-granddaughter of Joe DeLuz, former president of the NAACP and distinguished civil rights leader. Use your words.
End violence, grow peace. Peace is more precious than diamond or silver or gold. That's what Martin Luther King said. You can help me spread peace by voting for a peaceful president. You can also help me spread peace by doing a kinder, peaceful act every day. You can also avoid weapons. To end violence, you must not start war. Let's grow peace and end violence. Are you with me? Yeah!
We leave you today with a quote from Harriet Tubman. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.